Hello everybody, it's Lindsay from the Vintage Button. I slow stitch and I junk journal. I mostly junk journal at the moment. And today, because my practice is that I try to use things that already exist. So I don't buy stickers, I don't buy transfers, I don't really buy washi tapes. I do have them, but they're all ancient. I might buy a napkin because I know a napkin's likely to be made within my local vicinity, like as in Europe, and hasn't travelled far. So the reason I don't buy new things is because I think there are too many new things. Just over consuming. So I recycle. Now when I say I don't use new things, I don't mean that if you use new things you're evil, you're horrible, or I'm passing any judgment on you. I just use these things. So, and I don't see why you can't use a mixture of everything, if that's your thing. I started junk journaling in the pandemic where I couldn't get my hands on anything. And what we're going to talk about today was a big part of my initial junk journal story. And that's magazine clippings. So, for a long time, and I mean... it stopped coming whilst I was living at this house. So well over a decade I got this magazine monthly, and I initially got a different magazine that sort of went under and they transferred me to this magazine. And because they gave stamps away every magazine, you got a stamp basically, or you got something that was some nice papers. I thought, okay, it'll be like a present that comes every month. And during the pandemic, it was the only thing that used to come. And it's been very useful. My stamp collection is basically stamps from here, the odd bits and pieces I've bought. And I've cut these magazines up so much. I think I've probably got about 20 of them left, and I intend on making as much use of as much of it as possible. So I want to tell you how I process the magazines, because I'm positive that people who junk journal probably have lots of these, and I'd like you to use them or consider using them. So there is a bit of a process, and I'll show you kind of like the kind of things that that they make. So this is my Alice journal that I went through in a video. You can find it if you go onto my channel, and it was a second ever journal that I made. It was made during the pandemic, and I used one sheet of an advertisement for Alice in Wonderland, so you can see that's tiny. And then I used other bits from magazines, and then I have put some stickles on the top of that, and there is old book page, and I've sort of mixed it all together, because if you just use the magazine everything's very flat, but I mixed it together and made this layered look. And so they're not all just like Alice. That's how I made Alice appear bigger, by adding all the extra bits. But in this journal, because I've got lots of Alice bits, but I've made things like this, little rosettes, which is a magazine image onto a book page, onto a magazine image, onto a book page, and then all these little bits and pieces of different paper and things to make the tails of the rosette. So you can make all kinds of things using magazine images. And when you add it to that arsenal of book pages, papers that you might already have, book pages with flowers on, book pages with text on, all of these different things, it makes for a really rich and varied look in your journals. It makes the designs completely unique to you, because you're the one who's chosen how to cut these elements out of the magazine, because that's what we're going to talk about. You're the one who's decided to put these things together in this particular way, and that's what I really love about junk journaling. Excuse me, it's warm. That it doesn't have to be very formulaic. You can make it up as you go along. So where am I going to start? I'm going to start with my big box, and then we'll go through the magazine and how I've done bits this afternoon. So when I've talked before about when I've done like making things out of, you know, stamping in books to make things, or making things with napkins, sort of sticking them onto the books and then cutting the elements out, like these types of things are from napkins onto book page. When I've talked about those things before, I've said that like you do them when you're in between a project and you kind of your mojo's not quite there and you don't want to make a spread. This is another one of these things that you do when you're in between projects, or you might have a project on the go and you're a little bit stuck on it, or you might only have a little bit of time. All of the reasons why you're not going to get all your pens out, all your paper out, all, you know, like all the things and get it all out and do something. You can process magazines, and that's what I've done here. So we've got magazines that are in lots of different stages of processing them. So I've got bits I've just cut out. Now I wouldn't really use that send in love bit, but I quite like the bit around, so that might be ripped up, used as a background element. This, I like this bit, so I would fussy cut that out and do something similar, and I would probably try and do that with the other elements as well. There's leaves I could definitely get out. So I've just sort of snipped that out of the magazine. This is off a cover actually because it's thicker card, and popped it into my book. And then I've done other things like this, which is very sweet. It's very, very sweet. And I've just popped it onto the back of some vintage book paper, and it just sort of changes it from being something that was out of a magazine into something else that you can use, that you can sort of layer up, you know, make something different with it. You could sort of layer it up. I've got butterflies. There's also things that remind you that I could make that. That's just one of your stamps stamped into some watercolour that you've put onto a palette and then put onto a page, and then perhaps it's been spritzed. So there's things in here that will inspire you. There's this again, I would probably go over that. So this is a good example. I would stick something else over the top of that so that it becomes something completely different. So yeah, there's lots and lots of bits and pieces. That's like a carnation, and it just doesn't look like it's from a magazine anymore. So that's my boxes of bits and pieces. I mean, there's some printables have snuck in here as well because things just get put back. I don't think anybody's too precise, are they? Well, I'm not anyway. So this is just full of things from magazines. I've got like old pictures that have come out of my other magazines that are not craft magazines. If I've seen something I thought, oh, that's actually quite cool, I'll stick it onto a bit of book paper, and then you kind of got the beginnings of a cabinet card there. So all kinds of different ways you can use these images, and I just sort of cut them out, and when I've had enough of cutting them out and sticking them on book page or whatever, I just put them in one of these boxes. So I've got magazine clippings and more magazine clippings and there's lots of different ones. So these have got a different tone to them because they're from a different craft magazine. But I would further fussy cut this down to take the elements out and use them in very different ways from what they're represented here. So again, there's like 3 butterflies that could cut out. That looks like a poinsettia or something. Even these little elements can be cut out and used as little mini journaling cards. That could be used as a journaling card that gets shoved into the background. So it's not something you would want to put in the foreground because it's like, you know, it's just taken from a magazine. But I would fussy cut this right out and stick it onto a different piece of card, and then it could be used as a journaling card. Again, we've got things, you know, you could add things to things, fussy cut stuff out. There's large elements that you could either take it as a whole, or I would try and fussy cut those elements out, and then you've got like some cohesive pieces that you could make some, you know, a few things that look the same or similar. You've got nice things like the Lavinia stamps adverts are really good because you've got like the cat, and you could either take that out and use that as a journaling card, or you could take the elements out and recreate it. And I think I want some Lavinia stamps for Christmas. So I'll buy stamps. It's just the stickers and things I don't want to buy. So there we go. So that's that box. I don't want to dwell too much on it. And then I'll talk about how I actually process magazines. So, I, after work, sat for probably about 40 minutes, did some fussy cutting and backed things onto book page. But what I did was I got 3 magazines out. I actually took these elements from this magazine. I think you can see they're quite similar, like in tone. That's like a small version of that. And I will eventually cut this out. It's very shiny, so you could take a little bit of paper, sandpaper, and knock it back like that. I mean, I've kind of pressed on that quite hard. Or you could go over it with your matte medium. You know, if you don't like the shininess. I actually don't really mind the shininess. So I would flip through the magazine and find some elements that I think, oh, that's quite nice. So like I could fussy cut that element out. And I would go through and I would actually take the pages out that I wanted to work on that day. So let's go through this one. That's very sweet. This is an advertisement, but I really like those hedgehogs. That could be fussy cut out. The birds. Let's see, can I find a spread that I would take out? This advertisement's quite good. I've used this, and I've actually used it in journals in layered looks. So just sort of cutting these elements out. That's like a really nice floral that is very, very useful. That's really useful. The butterfly is beautiful. You could fussy cut that out. There's some mistletoe. So I would probably take these pages out because these things could be cut out. I know this has got a word on it that I wouldn't probably use, but what I would do is I would stick something else over that word when I used it in my pages. So yeah, I would probably take these elements, so these books, these pages out. Just kind of go through. These are nice. I would take that out. And I have actually dog-eared one. Where is it? So this is a good example. I would take, you have a series of cards that are all done in a similar vein. So this would be really good if you were making like a small journal and you wanted like a little bit of a theme running through. Look at that, that's quite cool. It's not, you have to check. That's one thing you need to do, is check backwards and forwards which is more valuable to you. So we'll pretend we didn't see the Lavinia stamp, and I would think about that flower. I'm not particularly interested in the bottles, although I do have bottle stamps. I think I have these stamps as well. I don't know if I have those stamps. I have similar stamp to that, but I would take that element and fussy cut or kiss cut the white and use it in that way. These I would fussy cut, these I would fussy cut. When you're cutting things out, you can either ignore that, or you would just amend it and make it so it's like a shallow petal. You could still get a flower out of that. Then you're thinking about this side, so I would say those flowers are more valuable than that. You would go through and you would just take the elements out that are really useful to you, and you would sort of develop a little collection that you could use that would thematically go together. So you take them out, and then I just sort of rough cut them out when I've decided these are the bits and pieces that I want to use. So I would like to fussy cut that out. I would fussy cut both of those elements out. I would again separate their elements out. I would fussy cut that, the butterfly, and this. I have actually got all of these stamps because they're from the freebies. This one, I might keep this one like this, just sort of fussy cut it out, and I would sort of, I'll show you how sometimes I get round these happy birthday things, is actually just cut them out, and then when you stick them on the book page, you have the book writing sort of behind, and then you can use the labels to sort of build it up, or you can use other things, and it just sort of like creates a different label within the image. I do this with stamps as well. Sometimes you get like really nice stamps and then it's actually got a fixed happy birthday or something in it, and I would get a pair of nail scissors and just go at it and just take the wordage out, because I don't make cards. If I made cards it would be different, but I don't. I make junk journals and I make other paper crafts that are not necessarily birthday-ish. So yeah, so I would just make that, and then when you back, you could put it on a little slant like that, and you would have that showing through. Obviously I would cut all around it as well. So there's that. We might come back to that, revisit that and do that. There's other bits and pieces that you find like this. So this is really useful for, let me get a page. I haven't got all my junk journals here. I actually keep my junk journals downstairs on a shelf, but this is my junk journal July. And I'll give you an example of how you can use magazines in a different way. So I'm very new to jelly printing. So this is not jelly printing, this is actually from a magazine and an article about jelly printing, where there was elements like this that I've sort of cut out, and I have just ripped and torn them creatively and added them to the page. So if you can't, like, I'm going to try, it might not be this weekend, it might be next weekend. I'll see what I feel like, because I'm either going to make a journal, or I've seen a hack where you can make your own jelly plate to do jelly prints, or not. You won't get the same result, but you'll get something similar, particularly if you only want to make backgrounds and fodder, using a Polly Pocket. So I'm going to have a play with it, and then we'll explore that together. So yeah, so you get your elements together, you rough cut them out. I have a little tray that I put them in generally, and then I'll sit. It might even be another day. So one day I would just cut, like go through an entire magazine, get all the useful bits out in that kind of way, and then another day I would spend fussy cutting. Bits are falling down, and then perhaps in another sitting I would take these things and I would fussy cut them out. So I'm going to choose, I think I'll just do the butterfly because that's really simple, and you can see then what things look like once they've been, and it's not really fussy cutting it back out, you're sort of kiss cutting it because you want it obvious that it's been backed onto something. So I'm just going to roughly cut it out, and then you'll be able to see what I mean. So there's also elements on the page that I find really interesting that I'm going to keep. So I like that bee for butterfly. Do I want to keep that bee? No, I will not keep that bee. Let me just keep, no, it's kiss cutting, I think that's the phrase, isn't it? I'm going to put a bit of extra glue down on that body bit. I was rushing somewhat. So I've got glue all over my fingers. but that's okay. Because not every fussy cut that I do, I rush. Because I actually like fussy cutting. I find it productive, as in that you get a nice product at the end of it. But I also like, it's quite mindful. Because you just sort of one with the paper and the scissors. Is that a bit woo? That's as woo as I'll get, really. I don't really. I'm not very woo. So yeah, here we go. We've got that bee. You can always decide to snip it off later if you don't like it. But you can just be a little bit mindful of what the picture, what the image is actually sitting on. But there we go. The ring keeps twisting. It looks nice. I like that, and it looks different. It looks completely different from what it looked like on the image in the magazine, and it's like my own little element. Let's do another one. Shall we do a big one? Again, do like a rough cut. You could store them. I mean, I probably, you know, that would be an idea. I probably wouldn't. I would initially, and then I would just get an itch to do some fussy cutting. So we've got that element, and you just sort of leave in a little bit so it's obvious that it's book page, and that's why it's quite good to sort of put it diagonally. You've got more chance of sort of hitting it so that there will be wordage out, or the odd letter. And I would just use, I wouldn't use like your precious paper. I would use, you know, the things that you have in abundance. So novel paper, you know, like when you, if you make journals out of books and you've got a text block and you don't really know what to do with it, this is one of the things you can do with it. It's also quite forgiving because that was just a bit of atrocious cutting. It's difficult because I would normally pull it towards me, so it feels like I'm cutting at a funny angle. But I do want you to see. I think I've got my black tray. Yeah, but it's got a lot of slow stitching stuff on it. But I'm going to move that off. I'm making plans of different things. I'm going to do one slow stitch project a week. That's probably going to be on a Sunday, so like slow stitch Sunday, because alliteration is a thing. Sorry about the fussy cutting. I just wanted to make the point, and this was the easiest way. I figured you wouldn't want to watch the whole process. So there we go. Let's have a look. Let's try and get that black. Oh no, I've knocked everything flying. That's alright. Don't know where that's from. This is just a silver tray that's like a really cheapy one. Pressed metal one that I painted black a long time ago in chalkboard paint, you know, like a blackboard paint. So there you go. You can see it in with the black background how different they look even from that image. And certainly let's just rough cut this out from the magazine. So you can sort of see a comparison. You know, they look very different. And you can build your own stash. I didn't have, like I have lots of books with wildflowers and books with butterflies, and I can make my own things with the stamps. And I could at the time as I was building my stamp collection with this magazine. But, you know, there was a time I didn't have anything. So if you're a very beginner and you don't have anything, even if you don't have craft magazines, just have a look at any magazines and see if there's images that are pretty and that you can take, particularly like if you could do something like that with it. It just makes it look so different. And you could build your own stash of really beautiful ephemera that looks really just different. We are going to do some stamping and watercolouring because I want to make an autumn wreath. So we're going to do some of that would be like in a real sense. But the thing is about like these images is you get them all in different sizes. So I have this stamp and it's smaller than this, so I get this bigger, as is this one is bigger than the stamp. But the little one, it's the same stamp as this, is smaller, so you get a different scale and you can mix things up a bit. Should we do one more fussy cut so that we need to kind of do one that looks like that, don't we? Let's do that big one and then we'll finish. So I hope you're alright. I can smell my dinner. It smells amazing. My husband makes dinner on a Friday. So yeah, I might do the jelly plate thing, and even if it doesn't work, sort of do a report on it, because again, like, I know I've just spent a lot of money because I got some tax back, so I got myself a printer and a nice comfy chair while I sit in here. But like, I also know what it's like to want to do something for yourself and not have any budget for it, and I would really like to sort of inspire that as well. So it's sort of thrift in the environment. Yeah. Resisting the urge to pull it towards me and it won't be pointed at you. There we go. So there's a difference. That's Lily's food's ready. But there we go. So you can see the difference. It just sort of takes something that looks quite flat, and I actually think it elevates it. It kind of lifts it up. It's something that you can mix in to make those sort of like images. You know, they just kind of make stuff. So yeah, avalanche of crafting supplies. So there you go. That's processing magazines to make ephemera and elements for your junk journals. I hope I've inspired you to do that. If you already do it, pop a comment on, below and let me know that you already do it. If it's something new, let me know too that that's the right thing that I'm on. Press like, subscribe if you've not. If you have, thank you very much. And do all the YouTubey things that'll help my little channel grow. Thank you very much. It's about to get very noisy and people-y. So I will see you tomorrow. Bye bye.